let me do it now. I'd like to call this January 20th extra meeting of the Outreach Committee to order.
Order achieved.
Order achieved. Okay. Welcome, everybody. We're supposed to be talking about speakers and potentially inviting our superintendent to come talk to us. That is why we are convened. So, and to discuss when we do what we would be specifically asking of Dr. Reed. So, how shall we start, Jessica? What do you think?
So at your last full board meeting, there was interest in inviting FCPS's superintendent, Dr. Reed, to a future library board meeting. And Sujatha, you very appropriately recommended that the outreach committee talk a little bit in advance about, okay, if we are going to invite her, what are we going to ask her to come and either talk about or hear about? And is there an ask that goes along with it? In subsequent conversations, it also seemed like a good idea to talk a little bit about if we wanted to invite the new mayor for the city of Fairfax to come to a future library board meeting. So whatever you all come up with now as a good template is something that could be utilized in the future for other special speakers. But for now, if we're just talking about Dr. Reed, I'd suggest that this committee talk a little bit about what you would like to get out of a visit from her to a future library board meeting. As you know, both the fan committee and the finance committee have talking points about budget asks. So it could certainly maybe start at a point where you're trying to find a correlation between the goals the library board is trying to achieve, either through your strategic plan or for your future budget asks, and the work that FCPS is trying to do. Or you could just invite her to talk to her. I have never met her. I don't know too much about her other than what I've read on FCPS's site. So this is just an opportunity for the committee to talk more about what you would like her to learn about the library board or what you would like to hear her speak about with your colleagues to start with.
So I'd like to add to that just for us to keep in our minds. Oftentimes I think when any group has an elected official or any prominent person come to speak, you know, what we're doing then is offering it almost seems like a platform for them, and they get to say whatever. There are very few ways of asking for any kind of accountability. There are very few ways of asking any pointed questions. It seems aggressive. It seems inauspicious, like building of barriers or whatever. It seems like that, and I think that is perhaps why groups just tend not to do that. We tend not, like any group, it tends not to do that. You invite people, and then it's just sort of a platform for discussing. Now, I can say that, you know, Dr. Reed is an extremely affable person. She's just an extremely affable person, right? But that doesn't necessarily, as far as I'm concerned, coming from my other advocacy, with my other advocacy hats and just my experience, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, because, you know, people can be good in show, people can be good in show. So considering, I mean, and again, like that's why I always sound aggressive. Even at the library board meeting, I sounded aggressive when I was discussing with this, which is not necessarily the way I want to. I certainly don't want to come off like that. And I know her. I have spoken with her many times. I have meetings with her regularly. So it's not coming from a place of like any kind of adversarial place, but I would like us to decide, what are we doing? Is it just like an idea? You know, we have a library board. This is what we do. We have a school member, an FCPS employee who is on our board of trustees. These are the kinds of concerns she's seeing. These are the priorities she has listed for us, that she has given us a list of priorities. These are those. What are your thoughts on that? How can you support her? What can we do to help you support her, etc.? It could be like that. That could be a really good sort of initial discussion for sure. Or, you know, we could talk about the particular threats to school libraries. We could talk about, like, say, for example, what happened at Langley High School, and the response of FCPS about that. That was before she got here, and to what can we do to protect library staff and schools and students from that happening in the future? Are there ways for us to to all be on the same page so that what we do is aligned with our priorities and our strategic plan, you know, so that teachers, you know, librarians and teachers in schools don't feel kind of like cast out by decisions that come from administration. So there are a lot of ways for us to approach this, and I would love to hear what you guys think. I just thought I would just start off with that. Those are the kinds of things that come to my mind. Hi, Priscilla.
I always like when we're in a situation like this, you know, maybe Jessica could add that, like, I'd like to be able to ask for something, you know, like some type of support here or there, something specific that we would like her to do or help us with, you know, along with, as you introduced it, what we could do. But I always kind of like to, you know, here's something that we really need. Could you help us with it?
Suzanne?
Okay, my feeling is more the other side. I like going to somebody and saying, how can we work together to do the best we can for our community in getting materials out to people who need them? And I also could see us, you know, giving her a rundown on what the library system does for students. She may not have had time to acclimate herself to that, unless perhaps Priscilla's has, you know, worked with her on what the library does. But I'd like to see it more of a collegiality kind of thing. You know, we have these attacks on library materials going on right now at both levels, and how can we work together to, as a community, to be in solidarity with how we deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Priscilla, when you're hearing, I know you got here a little bit late, and I was sort of talking about what, like, you know, just sort of brainstorming what I was seeing as pros and cons, normal ways of interacting with people who come. What do you think would be, let's just ask, what would you think would be the most helpful for you professionally? If we're inviting Dr. Reed, what would be your idea? What's the best use of our time?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Obviously, I'm in my car on the side of the road here.
Yes.
So I have a couple of thoughts. One is she and I have not interacted on a one-on-one basis to this point. And so, but I do know obviously that library has been at the cabinet level, which she runs the cabinet, and the current legislation that is proposed, as well as book challenge information, has been at her level. She's seen resources that I've created and communications, and but I haven't done anything directly with her, and she has certainly not reached out for anything directly with me. So I'm somewhat limited in what I can share regarding I don't know how to say it. Like, in this forum, I wouldn't be able to put forth an agenda for something like working through the library materials. That's more of a, you know, we have structures in the county for us when we talk about what our policies and regulations are. But if you have concerns or interests or issues, or want to explore with her what her stance is and what her purpose is when it comes to students and materials, I don't have any concern about those topics being brought up. Just know that I'm not going to be able to lead that part of the conversation with her, except to express what we have in place already and explain anything that is that she may not yet know.
And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that Priscilla is an FCPS employee. So I don't want to put her in any risk or jeopardy with a brand new superintendent either, because those things can be fraught, and sometimes things are said one way on the front, and on the back end it's a completely different reality, and I don't want to put her in any kind of situation like that. So I am very happy to be any kind of fall guy for anything that we have to ask that isn't
and to be fair, I don't think there'll be a fall guy situation.
I don't think so either. But also at the same time, you know, like when you invite any kind of public figure to a group, they have to be very protective of their message as well. And you're not going to be having these candid conversations in any kind of Zoom forum or even in a personal, one-on-one. You're just not. That's just not. So we have to look at what is the reality of having that conversation versus a conversation behind closed. So if I talk to her in her office at Gatehouse behind closed doors, that's one conversation. If I have enough, she comes to a board meeting, it's a completely different conversation. So we really are talking about a public dialogue with an extremely professional, affable person who is like a pro at talking, really, really good at that. So, we just need to talk and think about what we want to, what are our asks? What do we want to be able to support, Priscilla, whatever the priorities that you have set, places where you find that you could need some shoring up from admin, if there is any place like that, if there are any specific schools that have issues or anything, we could ask for those things. But
Right. I mean, I have to say, and having just had a meeting with my counterparts in other districts in Virginia, I have to say, when it comes to those sorts of things, our systems, our resources, we are in pretty good shape. There's always room for improvement. I don't feel the need for anyone to advocate on our behalf in those sorts of things.
Okay.
It's important to know, and I know, Sujatha, you know this, that there's a strategic plan that is being explored and developed now. And I think it's a great interest of hers. And there's a community aspect to that strategic plan. And so I think the board certainly has standing to share their perspective or their hopes and dreams for connections as a vital community member that shares some goals with the school system of caring for and educating our youth and supporting our families. So I think that is something that definitely she would appreciate, having an opportunity to do some dialogue.
That's a great
around.
idea, actually, if we just if we were to discuss how library board and FCPL collaboration supports the goals of the strategic plan, because then, Sue. You're muted. Or you can't unmute? You can't unmute.
Okay, there's a little button on you. Can you?
Now I can.
Okay.
When I tried to unmute, it wouldn't let me, so the host wouldn't let me unmute, and my chat was disabled. So I was like, I don't know how to communicate.
So when you all come up, instead of I've got little buttons now, it says ask to unmute. So I click that, and then I don't know what's asking, but someone said yes.
Sue, yes.
So that's what it feels like not to be able to communicate. Okay. I'm not as familiar with the FCPS system, but adult ed is underneath FCPS too, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Some adult ed, I should say, there are different flavors of adult ed.
Right. Okay. And I know this is more of my personal interest, is that we're talking a lot about K-12 and the library system, how that supports them. Have we thought about how the library system is supporting adults in their education, like GED classes or
Good question.
English language learners,
Who
computer
would be the
skills?
person we find that a little bit of information about that from? Do you know who that could possibly be in the system? Because I can almost guarantee you Dr. Reed doesn't know yet. So if we were to go in there with a little bit of information to be.
So there's two programs that might fall under that category. One is through the ACE program, and that is more a combination of apprenticeship type, certification type courses for adult education, as well as some they might even compete with park rec courses for adults, like flower arranging and culinary explorations and things like that. So that's one aspect. And then we have alternative schools. We have an adult high school, and the adult high school focuses on GED, or there's a transitional high school for English language learners, and that focuses on getting actually the adult high school, you can do a GED, or you can work towards your GED, or you can work towards course completion. It kind of depends. Every person has their own what they bring, and what they need. And, one thing that to point out is for the first time ever, and I will just say through the advocacy of my team, we have a librarian for the adult high school. We have never had a librarian for the adult high school up to this point. Now, that librarian does not have a budget outside of this, what the school is willing to offer. So that's our part two. But that might be like a highlight around providing access to our whole community, another area, because I know that FCPL also offers opportunities for adult education that are more formal, or at least at one point they did. I'm not sure.
We still do.
They still do. Great.
Yeah, so
So she will not be aware of that, I can almost guarantee. So that might be something also to share.
I
Okay.
agree with that fully. And one of the recent connections we've also made with that new librarian for the adult ed school is to offer LEAP cards, which are the fine-free cards, which are fine because we don't have fines at this point, but it's also available for adults who are part of that program that maybe have a blocked library card already because of lost or damaged items, so that they can continue to use the public library system. The public library system still offers the, oh gosh, they changed their name. It used to be the Career Online High School program, and they've modified the kind of their operational structure as they were bought out by another company. But FCPL pays for seats in that program so that adults who are aged out of the FCPS system and want a high school degree, not a GED, can take coursework online entirely to get their high school education paid through the library. So there's a lot of interconnection there that would absolutely be, hopefully, interesting to the new superintendent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
That is
and
great.
something that goes the other direction too, every single student has access to tutor.com now. And I know that there's a great relationship with kind of the tutoring infrastructure. And now that we are open in person in libraries again, I need to find out, but I don't think there's a reason why we couldn't share the access information, or at least the information sheet to branches around tutor.com. And I'm just coming up with that idea right now. So I apologize.
accept.
Are you saying, Priscilla, like the usage of the tutor.com, like who is using per high school, who is using? Is that what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is, Sujatha, you may know about this, but maybe others on the call don't. New this year, every student has access to live person online tutoring 24/7 without restriction, and parents and teachers can access the work and the data that's associated with students who take advantage of this. And it's everything from having somebody actually read your draft paper and give you feedback, to helping you figure out how to, and figure out complex chemistry problems, to a third grade project and you need assistance with it. It's really impressive. What I'm saying is there are students that are in the public library who could probably benefit from tutor.com and maybe have not had the opportunity to be fully aware, because of just the way that we navigate when something new is happening. And it might be, I don't know if it is, but it might be another connection we could make, is just helping bridge the knowledge gap between students, because only FCPS students could use it because you log in with your FCPS credentials. So I don't think it's an issue, but I'd have to just double check. But the reason I'm bringing it up is just coming up with another way where we can see, we have similar goals and similar opportunities, but we are creating kind of a puzzle where each of us has a piece, and together we're providing comprehensive services.
Agreed.
And tutor.com is through FCPS.
Yes, that's correct.
And you're saying, I'm sorry, let me just make sure I'm understanding what you're saying is like the thing that we could do. So you're saying that there could be students that are in our public libraries and our school libraries who could benefit from the use of tutor.com, who may not be taking full advantage or even know about it yet. And we could do something to increase access.
I'm thinking just a very simple, like, point of need kind of situation. Someone
Mm-hmm.
who is in the public library assisting a student may realize they need more assistance than just going to a database. They
Got it.
actually need assistance with this assignment. And if they know, hey, have you ever tried? You can do it. You can do it by chat. You can do it by video phone. There's just like, it's amazing. Just being able to, in the point of need, a public librarian to share that information with a student in need just might be an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And the reason I think it might be interesting to Dr. Reed is just for her to see that's one example of where resources in one place can enhance the experience in another place.
Nice.
Yeah. And we could certainly play. I agree with all of that. And I'm going to email you separately about something else about tutor.com because my wheels are spinning. But
Got it.
also, you know, our public libraries are spaces where students are coming after school hours and on the weekends, and they're bringing their FCPS laptops to use for homework and other needs on the public library's Wi-Fi with public library staff support. So even just having reminders for those students and for our public library staff about the amazing resources that FCPS provides them could be one more, you know, bridging that gap to make sure that they know what's available. So I'm a fan of all of that. I want to make sure one of the prior points that Priscilla brought up that may be of interest to Dr. Reed, and I'd like to make sure that this committee discusses a little bit, is the idea of access to library materials, both school library and public library materials. And I know that Priscilla is very unlikely to be in a position to talk about that in a public meeting. So I will do it. I can talk about it in a public meeting. There are 4 or 5 or 6 bills right now that have been introduced so far this session that affect school library materials, both access to those materials for parents, access to those materials for students, classifications and annotations of those items, and definitions of what different people might feel about materials for students accessing from school libraries. And 2 of them that I've been aware of have already been indefinitely passed on, but there are still some at play. And depending on when we're able to invite Dr. Reed to come, this could certainly be an interesting discussion to make her aware of that, you know, FCPS and FCPL provide a really broad range of materials for students in 2 different sets of circumstances, and that we have to play together to ensure that students have full access to items both during the school day and beyond the school day. Yeah, it's a fascinating legislative season for sure. And in addition to the school library bills that are out there, there's one related to public libraries in affixing parental notification labels for items that could be deemed to have sexually explicit content in them on every public library item based on Virginia code. And Virginia code is rather broad in how they define sexually explicit. It could include things like kissing or hugging, or the way I described it earlier was if you're looking at a picture book and there's Winnie the Pooh and he doesn't have pants on, you know, maybe that could be in there too. So there are so many pieces at play right now that if there is an opportunity to dedicate some time to talk with her and to get her feelings about the breadth of materials for students between both the school and the public system, that might be an interesting opportunity.
And I'm 100% behind that, having that dialogue. Thank you.
Not to beat a dead horse, like we all agree about that 1,000,000,000%, I'm sure. Well, I don't know if all of us do, but I do, let's just say. And the thing that what I would like to avoid is, I already know where Dr. Reed stands on this because I've already spoken to her about this, like, and you know, this and other issues. So I already know how she personally and professionally thinks about access, certainly about collaboration, about all of that. What I don't want to, what I would like to, I would like to capitalize on the opportunity of having her there to underscore specific concern. And we could use the Langley High School Library, school library as an example of this. I was personally hugely disappointed in the reaction of FCPS administration to that display, the library display by the librarians there. I know for a fact that students found it really inspiring, teachers found it really inspiring. I know that, and that's my home school, so I know that that was the case. I know also that for fear of a relatively minority, a small minority of parents, that there was this appeasement philosophy, a stance of appeasement, like you take everything down, there's a little bit of a, a small castigation, say there's a tacit castigation in that, you get your display taken down, even if if there's no overt statement made against you, you can feel as a professional that your professionalism was demeaned. The sense that you used to put something together was demeaned. And that's demoralizing. We already have a very demoralized FCPS staff, and they're dropping we're just losing a lot of people left and right. So knowing that Dr. Reed agrees with everything that we have said regarding protecting our collections and the students' access to it, what I would like to hear is that if professionals do something similar in future, that there's a sense that we stand on principles and we back that up rather than acquiescing to a very small and tiny, extremely vocal group, a minority group of people and their opinions out of fear. Because it was a different administrator, right? It was a different superintendent that happened under. We have a new superintendent, but the times have become much more fraught, and that vocal minority has become a lot louder. That's what I would like. If we're going to discuss this, I would like us to say something, just to ask for some assurances. When you say specific asks, that's something I would like to ask. Can we, is it possible that we could consider not backing away from these fights? Because I don't think backing away from these fights, not saying that we take on all the fights, but we don't need to necessarily back away from the fights, Anyway, that's what I don't, that's what I would like to be able to say in a board meeting, as opposed, I'll definitely say that to her privately. That's not an issue, but in a board meeting with the, sort of the collective, not authority, but the collective interest of a board, it's a different conversation that you have. I don't know. I don't like to miss opportunities like that. Thoughts?
I'm just wondering if we would be better off meeting, like we meet with the Board of Supervisors rather than in one of our regular meetings, monthly meetings with her. So it's more of a discussion thing, because if she does, we have these rules about not questioning a speaker and all that. Although they've been looser when we've invited somebody to come speak. But it just occurs to me, it might be better to share ideas, maybe include some of the members of the school board as well. I don't know what, that just popped into my head. I don't know what anyone else.
So if you all wanted to do like a joint meeting with members of the school board, that's certainly something you could request. They are pretty busy.
Yeah.
And if it's any more than 2 trustees, it's still a public meeting. So it would be publicly noticed, anyone can come and attend. I'm just not sure that when you all have presentations, they could be as long as you want them. So we as staff have tended to moderate it on your behalf to a shorter time frame, so you have time for your normal business. But if you want a longer opportunity for a presentation and a dialogue, that's up to you all. We can certainly do that if your board chair is in agreement.
And I know her time she's still out visiting schools and communities, and this is a learning year for her. Are we asking too much?
No, I think, I know that she gets a lot of invitations. I wouldn't have hurt feelings if she didn't accept our invitation now. But I
Uh-huh.
do think that there's a good chance that she would accept our invitation. And she has a specific interest in community engagement.
Okay.
So I feel like we shouldn't not do an invitation. If I can add on to thinking about the school board, I feel like if what we're looking for is connection between FCPL and FCPS in practical ways with specific outcomes, it's the superintendent that has the authority to make that happen.
Okay.
And with the school board, I feel like the school board is the conversation, if school board members were to attend, and I don't know that they would accept, but if school board members were to attend, I feel like the conversation may not be as grounded in opportunity and outcomes as it might be if it's the superintendent, if you know what I mean.
I understand. And maybe after we have this meeting with the superintendent, the individual library board members could meet with their school board member in their
I
community
think that's a great idea.
as an outreach, you
I
know.
think that's a great idea, yeah.
Okay.
So assuming that you all would like staff, do you want staff to reach out to her office and invite? And if so, do you want it to just be a blanket here, like our next 6 months of meetings? Are any of these a good fits? Or are you hoping to invite her to a specific meeting like that abuts to something else she might be interested in, like the Staff Excellence Awards or the Volunteer Awards, or maybe in May when we do the scholarship committee events? So
That might be a good time because the May meeting, because many of those scholarship winners are Fairfax County High School students or graduates.
I'm just throwing it out there. It's whatever
Yeah.
you all want. So I'm just trying
I
to
would,
conceptualize what's coming up.
I would respectfully ask that we not do the March meeting only because I am unable to attend the March meeting.
Okay,
Understood.
by all means.
Sujatha, what kind of timeline were you hoping for?
I mean, I have no timeline. I think that she's gonna be here. She has a 4-year contract. She's gonna be here for a while. She's getting to know things, and my interest is more more that we have a meaningful discussion and not I don't know. I have grown bored with opportunities for elected officials or prominent people to come and say stuff, and there's no rhyme, there's no, like, like, are we having a conversation? Like, like, I like to do business. I like to be doing business. That's what I'm saying. I like to be doing business. And I know that, everybody tends to just sort of just say stuff. And there's just a lot of this. I mean, these are fraught times. These are dangerous times. I just don't think there's a lot of time to be wasted. You take up somebody's time, you invite them to something. I'd like it to be, a meaningful and meaty
Productive,
discussion.
Okay. Staff will kind of schedule however you like. Looking forward, your February board meeting will very likely have a presentation from consultants that are going to get your feedback about a potential Reston Library housing development piece. So that one might be kind of pieced together already. Priscilla's requested not for March. April is your volunteer awards, which we will be again asking Delegate Sickles to come and host. So you could either buddy it up with that one, or you could wait till May, or we could push it further into the year where there aren't any other competing opportunities to take up time during your presentation segments.
So that depends on like that question. The answer to that question really does depend on what we decide we're going to be doing with the meeting.
Yeah.
So if it is just an introduce ourselves, these are the like strategic plans, these are the like, what do you think are the ways we can work together? Blah, blah, blah. Totally fine to have that two meetings together, because it's just like, hello, here we are. Did you know we are this, you're that, let's work together, which is completely acceptable. But if we're going to be getting into more controversial, or let's just say potentially difficult conversation points, then it should be a longer meeting and with lots of opportunity to discuss but this may not even be the right venue for that. I don't know whether meetings are ever like that. I don't know if we ever I don't know if any boards ever do meetings like that. So those are like always the kinds of meetings if we bring somebody in that's like that has authority to do things and to get things done, I like to use that time in that way. That's just the advocacy hat I have on. We don't get a lot of time like that. I don't like just like, it's a waste of that time. But that we don't have to do it that way either. That's just my preferred way if we're going to do it, if we're going to be discussing those kind of meaty issues. But if we're just having a conversation about the nuts and bolts, strategic plan stuff, these are the things we have available, how can we work together to really, beef this up, and the thing is that she's a superintendent. She doesn't even do that kind of thing. She makes those decisions. She's the head, but she's not doing those kinds of things, right? She would have to take it back. I mean, she wouldn't have somebody with her, I don't think, to be taking the notes on how to make these things, make them so. That's not really what her job is. So we would just be informing her of stuff that she may not even know that they have. She's great at the taking of the notes and everything like that. So, she'd have to go back and share it out unless we invite a couple of people from leadership, which she might like.
It seems to me having a sort of an introductory meeting first where we're sharing what we do and she can share what they do, and then maybe follow up in 6 to 8 months with a more substantive meeting discussion if that's what we feel we need to do.
Or we can ask at that first meeting, ask some questions, ask for follow-up on specific,
right,
and then follow up with another meeting where she can bring some goods, and let us know what she's learned, what she thinks,
To me, that makes more sense. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
It makes sense. Yeah.
I don't think we've ever met, at least in my time, with a school superintendent before.
Times they are changing, Suzanne.
And I haven't looked at the state code yesterday, but Priscilla, or recently, but Priscilla, you are the representative of the school superintendent, is that correct?
I'm a representative of the school board.
Of the school board, okay. That's what the code says now. Back in 1939, it said the school superintendent serves on the library board. Historically.
No,
So-
it has to, it's an agenda on board business. Don't ask me how I know that.
Okay,
Because there's a timeline issue, but it's an agenda item on the school board. The school board has to appoint me.
okay. But, we probably ought to explain the Virginia law on why you are on the library board.
She's an avid reader. I know she's a fan of libraries. I was even thinking if she were to come, she would love the history of desegregation in Fairfax libraries, and she would actually read it. I don't think we have to work really hard to have her feel some affinity. I think to make a connection with her where I'm a little fuzzy, I appreciate getting the reinforcement around we have common goals.
Mhm.
But what I'm a little fuzzy on what we in a concrete way would ask her to do differently.
That's why that's why I keep coming back with, can we ask for some assurances that our librarians will be backed up when they back us up, when they back up the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think those things are fair questions, and I don't know what answer she would give specific, if she would give, but I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say the purpose of this meeting, definitely make connections, let her understand that the Fairfax Public Library system is connected with the school system, and there are some great things we can highlight about it. And my assumption is that we would love to even be more connected. And if there is a way that somebody on staff or or someone on the board feels we could be more connected, then I think that is something that we can ask for. And don't get me wrong, Sujatha, I'm interested in her viewpoint and in navigating the choppy waters that we have now around valuing the contributions that public and school libraries have in our community. I definitely am not shying away from that question, and I would love to have her share her perspective on it. But I feel like maybe, I don't know if there's something else that we would be seeking out of this connection with her.
You know, I would suggest maybe that Priscilla and Sujatha sit down with Jessica and come up with kind of our perspective of what we would like to see, rather than be a whole committee discussion. But Priscilla's knowledge of what's going on in the schools and Jessica's knowledge of what we're doing, if, you know, we could kind of have this thought out before we invite her to come.
Oh, yeah.
You know, these are the things we'd like to bring into discussion and learn about.
Sure, from the staff side, that's totally fine. We're good to go for all of that. And I guess my question back to the larger group is, if the first meeting with her is just like a getting to know you, here's how we're great at playing together, wouldn't it be great if we played together more? Do you have to have a big ask? Or is that something that could develop over time if you invite her back again 6 to 9 months?
Hey, you know what? It is a meaningful presentation for her to receive, because there's so many things that we as a board don't know. She certainly won't know. She wouldn't even necessarily know who to ask in the division yet, because I'm sure a lot of her senior staff also don't know. So getting that presentation, you know, about like the ways in which these things have, you know, at least it would tell her maybe also like who to ask, what to ask, you know.
You
what
know,
to-
introduce her to the people in the library who interface with the schools, both at the preschool level, the adult education level, English language learners, the whole thing.
Yes, I
So-
say all that is very, very positive. I will also share that I have seen her in multiple scenarios where once that part is done, she wants a substantive conversation, and she will ask the question, like, she will not wait. She will ask the question. So even if we don't have, even if it's not our intention to have a substantial ask, I think that I don't see a scenario where she attends, listens, says thank you, and let's think about this and continue our relationship. My sense is when I see her, and I've only seen her really in staff situations, one, you know, in where she's with central office staff, but she is very direct in asking people about their opinion, what they think should happen. And I don't want to use the word interrogating it in a negative way, but she's interested in your answer. So she will follow up. So I guess that's what I'm
Very
trying
smart.
to say.
Yeah.
I think
She's
there should
very,
be
very
some
smart.
thinking about what we are striving for, unless all we're striving for is for her to be familiar and to keep in mind the fact that there's a allied agency, so to speak, that she may not have thought of before.
Yeah, that's legit too. She will follow up for sure. And she's a very cute, she is a very curious person. I mean, she's a person with a great deal of curiosity, let's say. And she does ask the questions. You know. So, next step is,
So what I jotted down as next steps is that Priscilla and Sujatha, as representatives of the outreach committee, will work with staff to develop our our email introduction and foray as we reach out to her for a future board meeting. And that future board meeting will be our introduction. It will be a hello, thank you, get to know you, hear the great things we do together to build that relationship so that down the road, if we have a bigger ask, it's ready to go. But specific next steps would be you two as representatives of this group working with staff to get that all together.
Okay.
We need a motion on that? Okay, good.
Nope, no motion needed. We're all good on that one. And I think that was everything on your agenda as well.
So, well,
Yes,
you actually did say something about other, inviting other people, some,
yes.
That- Yeah, it occurred to me that I don't think we did last year on National Library Week, we didn't get to have the city council do a proclamation. And I thought since we have a brand new mayor and 3 new council members this year, it might be nice to get that proclamation done. This morning, I emailed the city clerk. I have not heard back from her, but I would hope that they would set something up and we could go in a little bit early before our council meeting, which are on Tuesday nights. Usually the second Tuesday of the month, I think, but they meet other times too. So if you all are willing to go along with that, our whole board would be invited, but usually the city rep and the board chair and Jessica come to those, but you would all be welcome, just to get a chance for the city council to see what we're up to as well.
Yeah, and similar to prior years, we'll be working with the board of supervisors to get a National Library Week proclamation. And this year we will be requesting that it be in front of the board instead of a virtual version. So fingers crossed, everybody on that one.
Yeah.
cool.
That's it.
So yeah, this could be like, if the presentation we come up with has like some school specific stuff, but some general stuff that's just regarding what the library has to offer, it could be a template for other people that we invite. Other,
Yeah, there are some wonderful people out there that we could certainly partner more, both agency wise and board to board. You know,
Mhm.
Phil had mentioned during a prior meeting that he knows the executive director of the Workhouse Arts Center. And that is another group that has an amazing mission and work that they have going on, and that staff have already started collaborating with on things like art installations at our new Wharton facility. So if this method works out, it's something that we could identify additional groups within the county that you all would like to build stronger ties with, and that could help bolster our shared mission.
we have Kripa on our board who works for Ed Futuro, and Ed Futuro, we have so many language things that we offer here with our libraries that are so, and job stuff and access to computer stuff, all kinds of Wi-Fi stuff, all kinds of things that would be so helpful to the community that they serve. Maybe Sue's community and the big organization that you use too, that could be cool and useful to the people that we are hoping to serve better.
I'm even thinking Nova and GMU, we used to work more closely with some of those groups, but maybe it's time to rekindle some of those relationships.
We'll start with this one and see where it grows, I guess.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so Priscilla and I can discuss some points that we want to talk about with staff so that we can put our asses together. All good?
Yay.
So are
Sounds good.
all hearts and minds clear? Yeah, okay. So do I just adjourn our meeting? Okay, well, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and we'll call this meeting adjourned.